Dear chess lovers, welcome back to my channel. Today, the second match of the World Championship. This time Magnus played with white pieces. The previous match was drawn, so both players tried to win this game and fight hard on the board. But unfortunately, this game also went to draw. Let's go to the game. Magnus started with d4, Ne4 replayed with knight f6. Then c4, e6, knight f3, d5, g3, Catalan. Here Ne4 played bishop e7, then Magnus played bishop g2, then castle. Here Ne4 goes to d takes c4. Then queen c2, attacking the pawn on c4. Ne4 played pawn b5, defending the pawn. He don't like to give up the pawn on c4. Then Magnus goes to knight e5. There is a rook under attack on a8. Then Ne4 played c6, block it. Then a4. Idea a takes b5, c takes b5, then bishop takes a8 is waiting. Here Magnus played knight c3, then Ne4 replayed f6. Then Magnus goes to knight f3, then queen d7. Here after e4, knight b4 attacking the queen on c2. Then Magnus goes to queen e2, then knight to d3, fixing the knight on d3. Here Magnus played e5, but there is so many possibilities in this position. For example, if a takes b5, then c takes b5, then d5, after e5, then this bishop diagonal is closed, that is not good for white. Or if direct d5 here, then after b4, then this knight on c3 has no good square. So here Magnus played e5, then Ne4 went to bishop b7. After e takes f6, bishop takes f6, then knight e4, attacking the bishop on f6. Here Ne4 went to knight a6. Developed this knight. Also, if any chance, this knight is ready to jump on c5. Then Magnus goes to knight e5. Here Ne4 took the knight on e5. After d takes e5, then knight takes c5. Threat is knight b3, then rook b1, then knight takes c1, rook takes c1, knight takes c1, then rook takes c1. There is an exchange up. But here Carlsen accepted this exchange down. He went to knight d6. After knight b3, rook b1, knight b takes c1, rook b takes c1, knight takes c1, rook takes c1, now rook a b8. Then Magnus goes to rook d1, there is a discover attack to their queen, but Ne4 played bishop a8. He did not care about this discover attack. Here Magnus has a chance to play knight takes b5, but he went to bishop e4. Threat is bishop takes h7, king takes h7, queen h5. Here please pause the video and try to find the move for black. Here Ne4 played c3. For this, Magnus goes to queen c2. For example, if bishop takes h7, after king takes h7, queen h5 check, king g8, rook d4. Now pawn to c2. Here after rook h4, there is no checkmate on queen h8 because after c1 promotes to queen, there is a check. For this reason, Magnus went to queen c2. There is a threat on queen h7 still happening. Then g6, then b takes c3. Now b takes a4, after queen takes a4, rook f d8, now c5. Now rook a1. Here Ne4 played c5, asking exchange the queens. Magnus went to queen c4. Then Ne4 took the bishop on e4, after knight on e4, there is a threat on knight f6, so Ne4 played king h8. Now again knight d6, rook b6, queen takes c5, rook d b8, king g2, a6, king h3. Here Ne4 played rook c6, tried to kick off the queen. Magnus played queen d4, then king g8. Now Magnus played pawn c4, trying to fix the pawn on c5. Here Ne4 stopped with queen c7, now if c5, then rook takes c5. Here Magnus realized there is no more winning chance for white, so he went to queen g4, then Ne4 took the knight on d6, then e takes d6, queen takes d6, c5. Kick off the queen from this square, removing the defender. So after queen takes c5, queen takes e6, king g7. Here Magnus played a rook takes a6. Then Ne4 goes to rook f8, pawn f4. After queen f5 check, queen takes f5, rook takes f5. There is no winning chance for both, but Magnus tried to king g4. After rook b5, then rook a7 check. Ne4 goes to king g8, then h4, then rook e7, rook a5, rook e5. asking exchange the rooks for entering into pawn endgame, but Ne4 played rook a7. Then h4, king g7, h5, king h6, king h4. After rook a1, g4, rook h1 check, king g3. Here Ne4 took the pawn on h5. Then rook e6 check, king g7, g5. Then rook g1, king f2, then rook a1. Here Magnus played rook h6, then rook a4, attacking the pawn on f4, king f3. After rook a3, again king f2, then rook a4. Both players agreed to draw here. Really very good game. That this is also went to draw. We'll see what's going to happen on next game. I will try to post all the games day by day. Please support my channel with subscribe, like and share. See you on next game.